Now we're completing two-column proofs. And so we've talked about in class doing proofs to help us to strengthen our skills with using our properties and our property rules. So here we need to remember that step 1 is always going to be given, and I already gave that to you. But then we want to identify the difference between step 1 and step 2. In other words, what took place? Well, we see that 5 was distributed into this parentheses to create 5x. 5 times negative 2 created negative 10. And so that's simply our distribution property. Now the next step was given to you. Simplify the additive inverse. I had a negative 10 and a positive 10, which are additive inverses. And we simplified them. The combination of those two equaled 0. So our next step is to figure out what change took place between 3 and 4. Well, 15 didn't change. It's still on the right side of the equals sign all by itself. But 5x plus 0 became 5x. And so if I need to, I could write a step in the middle that kind of exemplifies that. 5x plus 0 equals 5x, because that's the change that took place between step 3 and step 4. And then that should be a real clear example of an identity property of addition. And the identity property of addition basically states that any number added to 0 is itself. And in this case, we're adding 5x to 0, and 5x is the solution. So next we have 5x equals 15. How did we get down to 3? X equals 3? We divided. And since we're not really dealing with some a true property for that yet, we're just going to label that as division. Because we're still in a very basic understanding of proofs. And so I will let you get away with a few shortcuts. And the shortcut for this will be answering your final answer as division. I would have also taken simplify, because 5x equals 15 is not simplified. We need to divide both sides by 5 to get x equals 3, so that would have been a simplification process. Number 6. Now, you don't have anything for number 1 for our first reason, and so we need to identify it. Again, I told you the first reason is always going to be given. And so now we can look and see what our change is between step 1 and step 2. And the only thing that changed was the order of the two numbers in parentheses. Nothing crossed in or out of the parentheses. So it's not the associative property, but rather the commutative property of addition. And I realize that goes off the screen, but there it is, commutative property of addition. And so now step 3, what changed? Well, in step 3, our positive 6 came inside the parentheses, and our x got kicked out of the parentheses, and that would be associative property of addition. O-C-I-A-T-I-V-E, property of addition. For the change between step 3 and step 4, 6 minus 6 is 0. Well, we just had an example of that in our first problem, in which we identified that as the additive inverse, or you could say simplify the additive inverse. And then we can say, okay, what's taking place from step 4 to step 5? 0 plus x equals 10. Well, the only thing really happening there is we're adding 0 to x, but it's not creating itself, so we can't call it identity. Rather, we are subtracting 0 from both sides. and getting x equals 10. So you could call this simplification, or subtraction, or simplify by subtracting.